Welcome to Mental Edge's Stay in the Sport Zone training. My name is Sean Goodsell, and I am your mental toughness trainer. Today we're going to talk about one of the most important, and I say that with everyone because I believe all of these are important, concepts of being able to turn frustration into fire. And what I mean by that is I want you to learn how to take emotion that at one point has debilitated your ability to perform, and I want to teach you how to take that emotion and turn it into inspiration and the type of emotion that elevates your performance. If you play sports long enough and if you compete hard enough over time, you're going to run into a lot of different types of emotion. Frustration is one that many athletes, and maybe yourself, you got a lot of experience with this. And what I want to do today is I want to help you understand how this comes about. How do you get to a point of frustration that ends up getting in your way of being able to perform at a high level? And what's the difference between, the emotion that inspires and elevates versus the emotion that frustrates and gets in the way? Being an athlete requires the ability to turn intense emotions into fuel for peak performance. Many athletes struggle with anger, they struggle with frustration, disappointment, and being overwhelmed. Because of this and some other things, they're not able to be their best when it counts the most. The key is being able to take these emotions and turn them into the fuel that will allow you to be your best when it counts the most. Even though emotions can get the best of us, there are times where our emotions do get the best of us. But more often than not, it's the expectations that we have going into a situation that lead us to experience the kind of emotions that block our ability to play in the zone. So let's talk about understanding how emotions come about. In reality, emotions come about in some of the ways that I had already talked about in some of the past video coaching. But an emotion is an internal feeling. Oftentimes people don't understand what an emotion is. An emotion is an internal feeling that we have as a result of how we think about an event or an experience. If you go back to an earlier video, I talked about this whole process for how we process through events and how we interpret them and things of that nature. But emotions are a form of energy. And emotions can be energy that fuels or energy that debilitates. And so you need to understand that emotions are not either good or bad. They're a form of energy. They're an indicator of how we're thinking about an event or an experience. If you want to know the quality of your thinking process, you can really tie that to the quality of your energy. The more productive your energy, the more enhanced your thinking is. Emotions are created by how we are thinking. So, our thoughts, again, are very significant to the kind of emotions that we create. And emotions can be utilized and can be fuel to help us play at a high level. Now, earlier I talked about how expectations end up setting the table for the quality and the level of emotion and energy that we create. Expectations, or another way of defining an expectation, is a prediction. So every time you and I go into a situation, especially a competitive one, we are internally trying to make predictions. And as an athlete, it's really, really important that our predictions or the expectations that we cultivate for any situation that we're competing in are an alignment with the best type of mindset. So expectations are predictions. Having expectations is not what's good or bad. We all have expectations. It's important that you have expectations. The part where we need to, be better at is we need to be able to create expectations that do not set the table for intensity and frustration. And we might have been told, throughout the course of our life that having expectations, don't have too low of expectations, don't have too high of expectations. And we've gotten a lot of feedback about expectations. But what I want to talk about today, in reality, we are most healthy when we have realistic expectations. And I realize that talking about expectations using the words realistic and unrealistic might be difficult to comprehend and understand based on the fact we've been told to have high expectations. But hopefully as I go through this video, you'll understand the importance of shaping your expectations around that which is probably most realistic. So realistic expectations, number one, are the type of expectations that are grounded in the events that are most likely to occur. So simply stated, if you're going into a competition, you want to look at your performance over the last 10, 11, 12 experiences, and you want to try to figure out, based on your best ability to predict, what is most likely to occur today. Now you don't have to shoot low and you don't have to shoot high. Just try to think about what feels most realistic. The closer you get to something being a sure thing, the more realistic the expectation is. Okay, so if something's 100% likelihood of occurring, then your expectation is realistic. The further you get away from 100%, the more that you're moving towards an expectation that's unrealistic. Because of this, it's important that your energy and your mindset is to try to play your best. But your expectations are what guide your interpretation of how well you played. So being realistic is not negative, it is smart. Keeping your predictions about your performance as close to 100% as you possibly can doesn't mean that you don't shoot to do something amazing or shoot to do something that is out of what would be realistic. It's just that being realistic is not negative, it's smart. Now here's some thoughts about unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations are things that are least likely to occur. So if realistic are closest to 100%, then unrealistic expectations are things that are furthest away from 100%. So the closer you get to 0% chance of event happening, the more unrealistic your expectation is. Being unrealistic sets you up for deep, intense frustration, anger, and discouragement. Because you're setting the type of realistic or unrealistic expectations, and doing so causes you to have a perspective on your performance that can only lead you to frustration and disappointment. So setting unrealistic expectations is not being a high achiever. It's setting yourself up for a tremendous amount of toxic frustration that inhibits your ability to play with a sense of poise and a sense of calm. Realistic expectations allow us to interpret our performance in a manner that does not ignite our discouragement and disappointment unnecessarily. Here's how it works. And this is going to be review if you have watched, most of the other videos. Here's how it works. Number one, we create our expectations for our performance, which I talked about earlier as our prediction. We end up performing. That's the event. We compare what actually happened with what we expected. So if what happened was, a mile away from what we expected, then our interpretation actually sets us up for the feeling of intense negative frustration and disappointment. And the feeling that occurs is overwhelming and doesn't allow us, to perform at our best. Now, here's the interpretation and, event interpretation and feelings. And this is not something new to you, but events are things that happen. Interpretations are the meaning we give to the things that happen. Feelings are the natural energy that occur from how we interpret events. So the event is what happened or how you performed. Your interpretation is the meaning you gave to that, thing you did or that performance you had. And if it wasn't close to what you predicted, then the feelings that are going to come are, going to hurt you. And here are some examples of some unrealistic expectations. I will always do my best. I hear athletes say this all the time. It's an unrealistic expectation. You will not always do your best. It's not even fair for you to expect that. Instead, say, I will seek to be my best, understanding that there are ups and downs. Do you see how that gives you a little bit of margin? It's more in alignment with what's more likely to occur. And it's softer on your mentality. You don't put so much pressure on yourself to always be your best. Another example, I will make that play every time. Well, there's nothing you're going to do every time. Like I've already said, you're not always going to be your best and you're not always going to make the play. Instead, say, I will make my best attempt to make plays when the opportunity presents itself. All you can control is your attempt, and all you can control is understanding that you're going to put your best foot forward. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know if it's going to work out, but allowing yourself some flexibility and margin to understand that there are ups and downs in sports and that you will control your attempt and your energy and your courage and let the chips fall where they may allows you to maintain an internal reality that keeps you in the type of mindset and spirit that will help you continue to play at the highest level that you're trained at. Another unrealistic expectation, I will try my hardest all the time. Well, I've worked with athletes for a long time, and I've never known an athlete that could actually say they tried their hardest all the time. What's true is you can say, I will seek to give my best effort as consistently as possible. And, these aren't just sayings that are meant to make you feel good. These are the types of thought processes. These are the ways of looking at yourself and at other things that will allow you to stay out of that volatile, emotional experience that can really inhibit your ability to play at your best. Always, never, when you use the words always and never, and you don't have any margin for error, is always a setup for disappointment. When you use always and never, you set yourself up. When you allow for some margin for error, you move closer to realistic expectations. So, how do you move from frustration to fire, or how do you move from that debilitating frustration into a mindset and a spirit that allows you to play at your best? First, you need to start with a passion to be your best. You need to go into situations and understand that your passion is not to be perfect. Your passion is to be your best. And one day, you might go to practice not feeling very well. You might have a lot going on in your life, and your best for that day is different than your best the next day. So start with just a passion to do your best and be your best day in and day out. Seek to make progress, not to be perfect. The reality is the more that an individual tries to be perfect, the more that you try to be perfect, the more that you will actually eliminate progress and inhibit your ability to grow. So seek to make slow, progressive steps rather than be perfect. Stay away from comparing yourself to others. The quickest way to ruin your psyche and ruin yourself is to start comparing yourself to others. You are not that other person. It doesn't matter if you're playing the same sport, playing the same position, doing the same activity. You are not the same person. Your development and your growth is based on you. It's not based on them. And using comparison to others as a way of evaluating yourself is toxic, it's disruptive, it's discouraging, and I've never seen a person compare themselves to another person and come out having that be a positive thing. Stay focused on the moment. Try not to get too far ahead of yourself. Try not to get too far behind yourself. Keep your mind focused on the moment and keep your expectations of yourself realistic, understanding that you're trying to continue to grow, you're trying to improve. Everyone's trying to be their best. But if you start being delusional in how you see yourself, if you start expecting yourself to do crazy things and you're using all and always and never as your way of describing yourself, then what I can tell you right now is you are an explosion, either externally or internally, waiting to happen. So my hope for you as a result of this video presentation is that you will first and foremost understand that emotion is a very important part of sports. Your emotions, especially ones that become debilitating and hurtful to you, that are frustrating and angry, usually start because you have expectations that are unrealistic. You are predicting that your performance is going to contain things that are virtually impossible for them to contain. And my hope for you is that you will start learning to turn that internal dialogue that you have about always and never and turn it into a more soft, I will seek, I will attempt, I will not hold myself to a perspective of being perfect. So thank you for tuning in today to the tuning or moving frustration into fire. I hope that you found this video presentation to be helpful. If you need to get a hold of me and want to ask me questions, you can go to Shaun, SHAUN, at mentaledgenow.com, and I'd be happy to answer any question you might have. And I hope that this video presentation was helpful to you. Have a great day.